In the cold, dark reaches of space, far from Earth and its colonies, a starship named Eclipse drifted silently toward an abandoned alien vessel. The ship was old, its metallic hull scarred by time and cosmic debris. It floated near the edge of known space, where stars were few and the void seemed endless. Captain Ryan Carter stood on the bridge, his sharp blue eyes scanning the strange craft through the viewport. Beside him, Lieutenant Jake Owens adjusted the controls, guiding the Eclipse closer. "Looks like no one's been here for centuries," Jake said, breaking the silence. His voice carried a mix of curiosity and unease. "What do you think happened to them?" Ryan didn't answer right away. He leaned forward slightly, studying the alien ship's jagged design. It looked nothing like human vessels. Its surface was covered in strange patterns that glowed faintly in the dim light of a distant sun. "We're here to find out," he finally replied. "But stay sharp. Something about this feels off." Behind them, Dr. Laura Miller entered the bridge. She was a slender woman with short brown hair and glasses perched on her nose. Her hands clutched a data tablet filled with preliminary scans of the alien ship. "I've analyzed the energy readings," she said, her tone calm but serious. "There's residual power inside. Whatever happened, it wasn't a natural disaster." The crew exchanged uneasy glances. They had been sent on what was supposed to be a routine mission, to investigate a mysterious signal coming from the derelict ship, but nothing about this felt routine. The signal itself was strange, repeating the same phrase over and over, "No pity for you." No one knew who or what it was meant for. Ryan turned to face his team. "All right, people, let's suit up. We go in, grab whatever we can, and get out. No heroics." Minutes later, Ryan, Jake, and Laura stepped onto the alien ship through an airlock that groaned as if protesting their entry. Inside, the corridors were dark and narrow, lined with walls etched in symbols that pulsed faintly with light. Laura paused to examine them, running her gloved fingers over the markings. "This language is unlike anything I've seen before," she murmured. "It's haunting." As they moved deeper into the ship, the air grew colder, and the silence became oppressive. Every step echoed loudly, making the crew hyper-aware of their surroundings. Jake kept his hand near his weapon, his eyes darting around corners. "You feel that?" he whispered. "Like someone's watching us." Laura nodded, though she tried to hide her discomfort. Even Ryan, usually unshakable, seemed tense. They reached a large chamber at the heart of the ship. In the center stood a console covered in more glowing symbols. A holographic display flickered above it, showing fragmented images of planets, stars, and what looked like massive waves of destruction sweeping across galaxies. "This must be where the signal is coming from," Laura said, stepping closer to the console. She began entering commands using her tablet, attempting to interface with the alien technology. After a few moments, the display changed, revealing text written in broken English. "Warning to all who hear, no pity for you." Jake frowned. What does that even mean? Who are they warning? Before anyone could answer, a low hum filled the room. The walls seemed to vibrate, and the glowing symbols brightened suddenly. Laura gasped as new information flooded her screen. "It's a message from whoever built this ship," she said quickly. "They encountered something that destroyed them." Ryan's jaw tightened. "Destroyed them how?" Laura hesitated, reading further. "They call it the Devourer. It consumes everything. Life, resources, civilizations. And once it starts, there's no stopping it." A chill ran down Jake's spine. "Great. So what are we doing here again?" Ryan glanced at both of them, his expression grim. "We finish the job, get what we need and leave. Fast." But as they prepared to head back, Jake noticed something moving in the shadows at the edge of the chamber. He squinted, trying to make sense of it. Was it just his imagination, or had something shifted in the darkness? The crew froze, their instincts screaming danger. Whatever was out there, it wasn't friendly. and it might already be too late to escape. The crew stood frozen, staring into the shadows at the edge of the chamber. The faint glow from the walls barely lit the area, but Jake was sure he had seen something move. He tightened his grip on his weapon and took a cautious step forward. "Did you see that?" he asked in a low voice, his eyes scanning the darkness. Ryan raised a hand to signal silence. "Stay alert," he whispered, moving closer to Jake. Laura stayed near the console, her tablet still glowing softly as she continued deciphering the alien message. Her hands trembled slightly, but she forced herself to focus. "There's more here," she said quietly. "This warning, it keeps repeating. They're begging whoever hears this not to let the Devourer spread." Jake glanced back at her. "What exactly is the Devourer?" "Some kind of weapon." Laura shook her head. "It's alive, or at least it behaves like it. It consumes everything, planets, species, entire civilizations, and when it's done, there's nothing left, just emptiness." She paused, reading further. "They say it doesn't just destroy physically. It corrupts minds too. Makes you lose yourself before it takes everything else." The hum in the room grew louder, almost like a heartbeat. Jake's unease turned into outright fear. "We need to get out of here. Now." But before they could move, a low growl echoed through the chamber. It came from the shadows where Jake had seen movement earlier. Something large shifted, its shape distorted by the dim light. Ryan stepped in front of Laura protectively, raising his weapon. "Show yourself," he shouted, his voice steady despite the tension. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a figure emerged. It wasn't human, or even fully solid. Its body seemed to shimmer, made of both flesh and shadow. Long, spindly limbs reached toward them, and its face, if it could be called that, was a twisted mess of shifting features. The creature let out another guttural sound, and the walls around them began to pulse with light. Laura gasped. "That's it. That's the Devourer." Ryan fired a shot instinctively, but the bolt passed right through the creature without leaving a mark. "What the hell?" he muttered, lowering his weapon. "How do we fight something we can't hit?" Jake backed away, his mind racing. "Maybe we don't. Maybe we run." The creature lunged suddenly, faster than anyone expected. Jake dove to the side, narrowly avoiding its grasp. Ryan grabbed Laura's arm and pulled her toward the exit. "Move," he yelled. The team sprinted down the corridor, their footsteps echoing loudly. Behind them, the creature gave chase, its movements fluid and unnatural. The walls around them seemed to come alive, pulsing with energy as if the ship itself was reacting to the Devourer's presence. Laura stumbled but caught herself, clutching her tablet tightly. "We can't outrun it," she cried. "It's part of this ship now." Ryan didn't respond. He focused on getting them to the airlock, shouting commands over his shoulder. "Jake, cover us. Laura, keep decoding that message. It might have a way to stop this thing." As they reached the airlock, Jake turned to face the creature, firing wildly in an attempt to slow it down. The bolt still passed harmlessly through it, but the noise distracted it for precious seconds. Ryan punched the controls, and the airlock hissed open. "Go, go," he ordered, pushing Laura inside. Once they were all aboard the Eclipse, Ryan sealed the airlock behind them. Panting, he leaned against the wall, his weapon still raised. "Is it gone?" he asked. Laura shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "No, it's not gone. It's waiting, watching. It knows we're here." Jake sank into a nearby chair, his hands trembling. "So what do we do now?" Ryan looked at each of them, his expression grim. "We find a way to kill it, or die trying." The Eclipse detached from the alien vessel, drifting away into the void. But the crew knew the Devourer wasn't finished with them. Whatever it was, it wanted more, and it wouldn't stop until it got what it came for. Back aboard the Eclipse, the crew tried to catch their breath, but the weight of what they had seen pressed down on them like a heavy blanket. The Devourer's twisted form lingered in their minds, its unnatural movements and eerie presence haunting every thought. Ryan stood by the main console, his hands gripping the edge tightly as he stared at the screens displaying data from the alien ship. Laura sat nearby, her tablet glowing faintly as she continued decoding the message. Jake paced back and forth, unable to sit still. "We can't just leave it there," Jake said finally, breaking the tense silence. "That thing is dangerous. What if it follows us? What if it spreads?" Ryan turned to look at him, his face hard. "We don't even know what it is, let alone how to stop it. For now, we focus on getting as far away as possible." Laura looked up from her tablet, her voice trembling. "It's not that simple. The message. It says the Devourer isn't just confined to one place. It travels. It infects. Once it's inside you, it changes you. You become part of it." Jake stopped pacing and stared at her. "What do you mean, part of it?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "It's parasitic. It takes over your body, your mind. You lose who you are, and then it uses you to spread further." The room fell silent. The idea of something so horrifying was almost too much to comprehend. Ryan rubbed his temples, trying to think clearly. "All right, let's stay calm. We've got the data from the alien ship. If there's any way to fight this thing, it'll be in there. Laura, keep working on it." Before anyone could respond, an alarm blared through the ship. Red lights flashed, and the computer's voice announced, "Contamination detected. Quarantine protocol initiated." "What the hell?" Jake shouted, rushing to the nearest monitor. The screen showed a map of the eclipse with one section highlighted in red, a maintenance bay near the airlock where they had re-entered the ship. Ryan's heart sank. Someone must have brought it aboard. Without waiting for orders, Jake grabbed his weapon and ran toward the affected area, with Ryan and Laura close behind. When they arrived, they found Chris Adams, one of the engineers, standing in the middle of the room. His face was pale, and sweat dripped from his forehead. He clutched his arm, which was covered in strange, black veins spreading rapidly beneath his skin. "Chris!" Ryan barked. "What happened?" Chris looked up, his eyes wide with panic. I don't know. Something touched me when we were on that ship. I didn't think anything of it until..." His voice trailed off, and he winced in pain. "It hurts. And I can hear voices." Laura stepped forward cautiously, her tablet in hand. "Let me take a look," she said softly. Reluctantly, Chris extended his arm. Laura scanned it, her expression growing darker with each passing second. "Oh no," she whispered. "What is it?" Ryan demanded. "It's already inside him," Laura replied, her voice shaking. "Microscopic tendrils are infiltrating his nervous system. If we don't do something soon, it'll take over completely." Chris began breathing heavily, clutching his head. "Get it out of me," he begged. "Please, get it out." Jake raised his weapon, aiming at Chris. "We need to contain this before it spreads to the rest of us." "No," Ryan snapped, stepping between them. "We're not killing him yet. Not while there's still a chance." Laura intervened quickly, pulling a sedative from her medical kit. "This will slow it down, at least for a little while." She injected the sedative into Chris's neck, and within moments, his body went limp. He collapsed to the floor, unconscious. Ryan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Lock this area down. Nobody goes in or out without my say-so." As the others moved to secure the bay, Laura stayed behind, staring at Chris's motionless form. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Whatever the Devourer was, it wasn't done with them. Not by a long shot. The Eclipse drifted silently through space, its crew trapped in a tense standoff with the unknown. Chris lay unconscious in the quarantine maintenance bay, his body slowly changing under the influence of the Devourer. Laura sat at her workstation, surrounded by data from the alien ship and readings from Chris's condition. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she pieced together the horrifying truth. "It's worse than I thought," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Ryan and Jake stood nearby, their expressions grim. The contamination isn't just physical. It's rewriting him, his cells, his brain. If we don't stop it, he won't be Chris anymore. Ryan crossed his arms, his jaw tight. Can we remove it? Burn it out or something? Laura shook her head. It's too advanced. By the time we see the symptoms, it's already spread. And even if we could slow it down, there's no guarantee it wouldn't jump to someone else. Jake paced back and forth, his frustration boiling over. So what are you saying? We let it turn him into whatever that thing was on the alien ship. Then what? Wait for him to attack us? No, Ryan said firmly. We're not giving up on him. Not yet. But as the hours passed, Chris's condition worsened. The black veins spreading across his skin began to pulse faintly, glowing with an unnatural light. His breathing grew erratic, and low, guttural sounds escaped his lips. When Laura checked the monitors, she found something even more alarming. His brain activity was spiking, as though two minds were battling for control. We need to make a decision, Laura said, turning to Ryan. If we wait much longer, it'll be too late. He'll become one of them. Ryan hesitated, staring at Chris through the quarantine window. The man who had once been a trusted member of the crew now looked like a stranger. Is there any way to save him? He asked quietly. Laura shook her head again, not without risking everyone else. I'm sorry. Jake stepped forward, his voice hard. Then we have to end this. Now. Ryan didn't answer right away. He knew Jake was right, but the weight of the decision pressed heavily on him. Finally, he nodded. Do it. Jake grabbed a weapon and moved toward the sealed door of the maintenance bay. But before he could open it, a loud crash echoed from inside. Chris had woken up. Through the window, they watched in horror as Chris slammed against the walls, his body contorting unnaturally. His eyes glowed with the same eerie light as the veins on his skin, and his mouth opened impossibly wide, letting out a deafening scream. The sound sent chills down their spines. He's gone, Laura whispered, stepping back. He's not Chris anymore. Chris, or what used to be Chris, turned toward the window, his glowing eyes locking onto theirs. For a moment, they thought he might break through the glass, but instead, he let out another ear-splitting roar and charged at the far wall. Metal groaned as he tore through it, creating an opening to the rest of the ship. Seal the section, Ryan shouted, rushing to the controls. Alarms blared as doors throughout the Eclipse locked down, trapping the creature in a limited area. But they all knew it wouldn't hold him for long. Jake gripped his weapon tightly, his knuckles white. How do we kill it? Laura stared at the monitors, her mind racing. We can't fight it directly. But the alien message mentioned something. A pulse, maybe. A way to disrupt its biology. Ryan turned to her sharply. Can you replicate it? I can try, she said, typing furiously on her tablet. But it'll take time. And we'll need to get close enough to use it. Jake clenched his jaw. Time is the one thing we don't have. As they worked, the sound of destruction grew louder. The creature was tearing through the ship, hunting them. Ryan glanced at his crew, seeing the fear in their eyes. He knew what he had to do. We split up, he said. Jake, you and Laura work on the pulse. I'll draw it away from you. No way, Jake snapped. You're not doing this alone. Ryan gave him a firm look. Someone has to buy us time. That's an order. Before anyone could argue, Ryan grabbed his weapon and headed toward the chaos. As he disappeared down the corridor, Laura and Jake exchanged worried glances. They both knew the odds were against them, but if they failed, the entire galaxy would pay the price. Ryan moved quickly through the narrow corridors of the Eclipse, his weapon drawn and his heart pounding. The ship groaned under the strain of the creature's rampage, its metallic walls dented and torn where Chris, now barely recognizable as human, had passed through. Ryan's plan was simple but dangerous. Leave the monster away from Laura and Jake, so they could finish building the pulse device. He knew it might cost him his life, but he didn't hesitate. He reached an open section of the ship, a large storage bay, and fired a shot into the ceiling. The loud blast echoed through the halls, drawing the creature's attention. Moments later, the sound of heavy footsteps approached, accompanied by the eerie glow of those unnatural veins. Ryan took a deep breath and stepped back, ready to face whatever came next. The creature burst into the room with terrifying speed, its body twisted and malformed. Its once human features were now a grotesque mix of flesh and shadow, its eyes burning with rage. It let out a deafening roar, shaking the walls around them. Ryan fired repeatedly, aiming for its glowing veins, but the shots had no effect. The creature lunged at him, forcing him to dive out of the way. Meanwhile, in another part of the ship, Laura and Jake worked frantically on the pulse device. Laura pored over the alien data while Jake assembled components scavenged from the Eclipse's engineering bay. "How much longer?" Jake asked, his voice tense. "Just a few more minutes," Laura replied, her hands trembling as she adjusted the settings. "But we need to get this thing close enough to use it. Otherwise, it won't work." Jake glanced toward the door, listening to the distant sounds of destruction. "Ryan can't hold it off forever." Laura nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know. We have to hurry." Back in the storage bay, Ryan continued dodging the creature's attacks. Every movement felt like a gamble. Every second stretched thin. His weapon was useless, so he resorted to throwing objects, tools, crates, anything he could find, to distract it. But the creature seemed unstoppable, shrugging off obstacles as if they were nothing. Finally, Ryan spotted an emergency hatch leading to an airlock. If he could lure the creature inside and seal it off, maybe he could buy enough time for Laura and Jake to finish their work. Summoning what little energy he had left, he sprinted toward the hatch, firing shots behind him to keep the creature chasing him. It followed relentlessly, its movements faster and more erratic. Ryan reached the airlock and slammed his hand on the control panel, opening the outer door just wide enough to slip through. The creature barreled after him, crashing into the chamber. Ryan hit the controls again, sealing the inner door and trapping the monster inside. For a moment, he thought he'd succeeded. Then, with a sickening crunch, the creature smashed through the inner door, breaking free. Ryan stumbled backward, his weapon slipping from his grasp. The creature loomed over him, its glowing eyes locking onto his. Before it could strike, a loud hum filled the air. Jake appeared at the far end of the corridor, holding the completed pulse device. "Ryan, move," he shouted. Ryan scrambled out of the way as Jake activated the device. A blinding wave of energy surged through the corridor, engulfing the creature. It let out a final, ear-splitting scream before collapsing to the ground, its body disintegrating into ash. Jake rushed to Ryan's side, helping him to his feet. "Are you okay?" Ryan nodded, breathing heavily. "Where's Laura?" "She stayed behind to monitor the systems," Jake said. "We need to get back to her." When they returned to the lab, Laura was slumped over her workstation, exhausted but alive. She looked up weakly as they entered. "Did it work?" Jake held up the pulse device. "Yeah, it worked." For a moment, relief washed over them. But it was short-lived. As they caught their breath, the ship's comm system crackled to life, and a distorted voice whispered through the speakers, "No pity for you." The crew froze as the distorted voice echoed through the Eclipse's comm system. "No pity for you." The words were faint but unmistakable, sending chills down their spines. Laura was the first to react, her fingers trembling as she typed commands into her tablet. "It's still here," she whispered, her voice shaking. "The Devourer, it's not gone." Ryan clenched his fists, his mind racing. "What do you mean? We destroyed it, didn't we?" Laura shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. "We stopped the physical form, but it's more than that. It's like a virus, a consciousness that spreads. If even a trace of it remains, it can rebuild itself." Jake stepped forward, his weapon still in hand. Then we burn this ship. Wipe it out completely. Ryan hesitated, glancing at the others. And if it's already spread beyond the eclipse? What then? Laura looked up, her expression grim. That message we decoded. It said the Devourer doesn't just stay in one place. It travels through space, jumping from ship to ship, planet to planet. If we don't warn others, it'll keep spreading until there's nothing left. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air. Ryan turned away, pacing the room. He knew what had to be done, but the cost would be unimaginable. There's only one way to make sure it doesn't escape, he said finally. We use the eclipse's quantum core to create a massive pulse, one strong enough to destroy anything infected within range. Jake frowned. That's suicide. Someone will have to stay behind to activate it manually. I'll do it, Laura said suddenly, her voice firm despite the fear in her eyes. She stood up, clutching her tablet tightly. I'm the one who understands the technology best. I can program the core and trigger the pulse. No, Jake snapped, stepping toward her. You're not doing this alone. It's not your choice, Laura replied, meeting his gaze. If I don't do this, the Devourer wins. And trust me, none of us want to see what happens next. Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder, his expression softening. Laura, there has to be another way. She shook her head. There isn't. You know it as well as I do. Get everyone else to the escape pods. I'll handle the rest. Before they could argue further, alarms blared again. The ship's systems detected movement, something alive, deep within the eclipse. Whatever remained of the Devourer was regenerating faster than expected. Time was running out. Jake grabbed Laura's arm, his voice desperate. At least let me help you set it up. 2 people can work faster than one. Reluctantly, Laura agreed. Together, they raced to the engineering bay where the quantum core was housed. Along the way, Jake kept glancing over his shoulder, half expecting the creature to reappear. But the ship remained eerily silent, as though holding its breath. Once they reached the core, Laura began programming the pulse sequence while Jake monitored the ship's systems. 5 minutes, she said, her voice tight with focus. That's all we need. As the countdown began, Jake noticed something moving in the shadows near the door. His heart sank. Laura, we've got company. Sure enough, a dark, shifting mass appeared in the corridor outside, growing larger by the second. The Devourer wasn't fully formed yet, but it was close enough to sense their presence. Jake raised his weapon, firing blindly to buy them time. The shot slowed the creature's advance, but couldn't stop it. 2 minutes, Laura shouted, her fingers flying across the console. Jake glanced at her, then back at the growing threat. Go, he said firmly. Get to the escape pods. I'll hold it off. Laura hesitated, tears streaming down her face. Jake, just go, he yelled, shoving her toward the exit. Make sure the warning gets out. With no time to argue, Laura ran, leaving Jake behind. As she reached the escape pod bay, Ryan and the remaining crew members were already waiting. They watched in stunned silence as Laura sealed herself inside the last pod, her hands gripping the controls tightly. Back in the engineering bay, Jake faced the creature alone. It loomed over him now, its glowing veins pulsing with rage. He fired until his weapon clicked empty, then grabbed a nearby pipe, ready to fight to the end. Seconds later, the quantum core erupted in a blinding flash of light, consuming the eclipse, and everything aboard it. In the distance, Laura's escape pod drifted silently through space, carrying humanity's final message to the galaxy. No pity for you. The escape pod drifted silently through the vast emptiness of space, its small engines humming faintly as it carried Laura Miller toward Earth's orbital station. Inside, she sat hunched over, her hands gripping the edges of her seat. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. The weight of what had happened pressed down on her like a physical force. Ryan, Jake, Chris, all gone. Sacrificed to stop the Devourer. And even now, she couldn't shake the feeling that their efforts might not have been enough. When the pod finally docked at the station, Laura was greeted by a team of engineers and medical staff. They helped her out, their faces filled with concern as they noticed her trembling hands and distant gaze. "Are you hurt?" one of them asked gently. Laura shook her head. "No, but my crew, they didn't make it." The staff exchanged uneasy glances but said nothing. They escorted her to a debriefing room, where officials waited to hear her story. For hours, Laura recounted everything: the derelict alien ship, the warning message, the Devourer, and the desperate last stand aboard the Eclipse. She showed them the data she had salvaged, her voice cracking as she explained how Jake had stayed behind to give her a chance to escape. By the time she finished, the room was silent. One of the officials leaned forward, his expression grave. "You're saying this thing could still be out there?" Laura nodded. "It's smart. It adapts. If even a fragment of it survived, it'll find a way to spread. We need to warn everyone, every colony, every ship, every world." The officials promised to act quickly, broadcasting her warning across the galaxy. But as days turned into weeks, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was already too late. News reports began filtering in about strange signals detected near remote outposts, ships vanishing without explanation, and colonies losing contact. Each report sent a chill down her spine. In private moments, Laura replayed Jake's final words in her mind. "Make sure the warning gets out." She threw herself into spreading the message, giving interviews, writing reports, and speaking directly to anyone who would listen. Her warnings were met with skepticism at first. Some dismissed her as traumatized or paranoid. But as more incidents occurred, fear began to spread. Months later, Laura stood on the observation deck of the orbital station, staring out at the endless expanse of stars. Below her, Earth glowed softly, its blue and green surface a stark contrast to the cold void surrounding it. Despite all her efforts, she couldn't shake the feeling that the Devourer was closer than anyone realized. A young technician approached her, holding a tablet. "Dr. Miller, we've picked up something unusual. A signal coming from deep space." Laura's heart skipped a beat. "What kind of signal?" "It's faint," the technician replied, handing her the tablet. "But it matches the pattern you described." Repeating the same phrase. Laura's blood ran cold as she read the text on the screen. "No pity for you." Her hands trembled as she handed the tablet back. "Send a message to all nearby ships and colonies. Tell them to stay away from the source. Whatever you do, don't investigate." The technician nodded and hurried off, leaving Laura alone once more. She turned back to the viewport, her reflection staring back at her in the glass. The stars twinkled innocently, oblivious to the darkness lurking between them. As she stood there, a faint crackle sounded over the station's comm system. At first, it was just static. But then, barely audible, came a distorted whisper, "No pity for you." Laura closed her eyes, tears streaming down her face. Humanity had fought bravely, sacrificed everything. And yet the threat remained. Somewhere out there, the Devourer was watching, waiting, hungry for its next victim. And no matter how far humanity tried to run, it would never truly escape.